Imagine you're standing in a showroom in 1978. The air is thick with the smell of new leather and optimism. You see it, a gleaming Oldsmobile. It's a land yacht in the truest sense, measuring over 230 inches of American steel. But under that massive hood lies a revolutionary promise, the Diesel V8. The salesman tells you it's the future. He says you'll get the fuel economy of a compact car with the torque of a freight train. It sounds like a miracle, but within 6 months, that miracle would turn into a mechanical nightmare that would nearly bankrupt one of the most storied brands in automotive history. This is the story of the Oldsmobile Diesel V8, the engine that self-destructed. To understand why General Motors took such a reckless gamble, we have to look at the world in the mid-1970s. The era of the unlimited V8 was dying. The 1973 oil crisis had sent shockwaves through the American economy. Suddenly, those massive engines, like the 8.2-liter Cadillac V8 that produced a mere 190 horsepower, were seen as liabilities rather than luxuries. The government was stepping in with strict new fuel economy and emissions regulations. For a company like Oldsmobile, which built its reputation on big, comfortable cruisers like the 98 and the Omega, the future looked bleak. They needed a Hail Mary pass. They needed a way to keep their cars big while making their fuel consumption small. Enter the diesel. In Europe, diesel was the standard for efficiency. GM saw this and decided they wouldn't just build a diesel car, they would build a diesel empire. But they made a fatal mistake. Instead of designing a purpose-built diesel engine from the ground up, a process that would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars and taken years, they decided to convert their existing 350 cubic inch gasoline V8 into a diesel. This was the moment the disaster was born. A gasoline engine and a diesel engine operate on fundamentally different physics. A gas engine uses spark plugs to ignite fuel. A diesel uses extreme compression. We are talking about compression ratios that are nearly double that of a gas engine. Oldsmobile engineers took the standard 350 block, the same one found in millions of reliable passenger cars, and tried to reinforce it. They added more bolts, they beefed up the main bearings, but they kept the basic geometry of a gas engine. It was like trying to turn a marathon runner into a heavyweight boxer by just giving them a heavier pair of shoes. The internal stresses were simply too much for the architecture to handle.
Initially, the gamble seemed to pay off. In 1978, the Oldsmobile Diesel was a hit. It was available in almost every model, from the luxury 98 to the custom cruiser wagons. Buyers loved the idea of 30 miles per gallon in a car that weighed 5,000 pounds. But as the first wave of owners hit the 20,000-mile mark, the cracks began to show. Literally. The first thing to go was usually the head bolts. Because the engine used the same bolt pattern as the gas version, there weren't enough fasteners to hold the cylinder heads down under the massive pressure of diesel combustion. The heads would actually lift off the block. This would blow the head gasket, allowing coolant to spray into the cylinders. If you were lucky, the engine just overheated and died. If you were unlucky, the coolant would cause hydrolock. Water doesn't compress. When the piston came up and hit that pool of coolant, it was like hitting a brick wall. The connecting rods would snap, or the crankshaft would shatter, sending shards of metal through the oil pan. Total engine destruction. But it wasn't just the block. GM had neglected to include a water separator in the fuel system, a standard feature on every other diesel engine in the world. Diesel fuel is naturally prone to water contamination. In the Oldsmobile, that water would go straight into the high-precision fuel injection pump. The water would cause the internal parts of the pump to rust and seize. Owners would be driving down the highway at 60 miles per hour when suddenly the engine would just stop. No power steering, no power brakes, just a 5,000-pound dead weight rolling toward the shoulder. It wasn't just a reliability issue, it was a safety disaster. By 1980, the reputation of Oldsmobile and GM as a whole was in freefall. People weren't just complaining, they were suing. This engine gave birth to the modern lemon laws in the United States. It became a staple of 10 worst cars lists for decades. Owners reported that parts would literally fall apart and engines would self-destruct while sitting in driveways. The land yacht era, which had been defined by reliability and relaxed cruising, was now defined by smoke, rust, and broken promises. The death of American diesel. The failure of the Oldsmobile Diesel didn't just hurt Oldsmobile, it poisoned the well for diesel technology in America for 30 years. To this day, many American consumers are wary of diesel passenger cars because their parents or grandparents had an Olds that blew up in 1981. GM tried to fix it. By 1981, they introduced the DX block, which was a much stronger, purpose-built casting. But it was too late. The damage was done. They had sold hundreds of thousands of the converted engines, and those engines were failing at an astronomical rate. Sales plummeted, and by 1985, the Olds diesel was quietly removed from the lineup. The domino effect. This disaster was a symptom of a larger problem at General Motors during that era, a lack of innovation and a refusal to listen to engineers over accountants. We saw it with the Chevrolet Vega's melting aluminum engines, and we saw it with the Cadillac Northstar's later head bolt issues. The Oldsmobile Diesel stands as the ultimate warning of what happens when a company tries to take a shortcut to the future. They tried to build a revolution on a budget, and the result was a catastrophe that turned the engine of the future into the engine that self-destructed. Today, finding a running Oldsmobile Diesel is like finding a unicorn. Most were either scrapped or converted back to gasoline engines by frustrated owners. But for those who remember the era of the land yacht, the rattle of that Diesel V8 remains a haunting reminder of a time when American automotive ambition finally outpaced its engineering. So, what do you think? Was the Oldsmobile Diesel a noble experiment gone wrong, or was it a cynical attempt to trick buyers into thinking GM had solved the fuel crisis? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button as we continue to dive into the most fascinating and disastrous chapters of automotive history. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.